Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. Hard Rock Bet is the only legal sportsbook whenever you're in Florida, and it's also live in Arizona, Ohio, Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, and Colorado, coming soon to more states near you. You know that last week, 4 top 10 teams lost. And in this new college football landscape, anything can happen every single weekend. So here's the thing. Get in on the chaos right now. Sign up for Hard Rock Bet. And if your first $5 bet wins, you'll score $150 in bonus bets on top of your winnings. Download the Hard Rock Bet now. Plus today and tomorrow on Hard Rock Bet, you can get a college football profit boost for the games. Boost your college football parlay so your bet pays extra. What is going on, everybody? How are we doing? Just watched a little Thursday night football. Hopefully everyone's doing well. Better than Carson Wentz, who I hope is alive. And I definitely want to dive in to the Minnesota Vikings and their quarterback situation, which let's just sum it up by saying it's a disaster. They lose 37-10 tonight to the Chargers, who have a million injuries, and just throttled them all night long. So we'll get some thoughts on the Vikings, who last year were a 14-win team. I don't know if they're going to win half that. I mean, to me, they feel like a 5 or 6-win team right now, and it all starts with the quarterback. And I get they have a great coaching staff, but we'll dive into that situation. And the Chargers, listen, you're going to need a get-right game. You get Carson Wentz, you get the Vikings, and you kick their ass. So we'll dive into the Chargers. It is Fugazi Friday, so we'll hit on – I just actually wrote down a bunch of different Fugazis. We obviously have the biggest one that happened today. Turns out there is something called these poker games that Chauncey Billups was associated with, potentially the mob. I mean, that's right up my alley. You put out a Netflix documentary on that thing. You put out a podcast. I will consume that till the cows come home. Can't wait for that one. But you talk about a Fugazi poker game. You talk about the tanking in the NBA and the Fugazi that's been going on in terms of better be careful about gambling on these games when you got Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier involved. And we'll hit on a couple other things. We'll dive into it. But before we do, I got to tell you about my friends. I got to tell you about my partners. The official ticketing app of this podcast. Do you want to go to one of these games? I was watching before I walked in here. The Warriors. They're actually losing to the Nuggets. Nuggets look pretty good. But you want to go to an NBA game? College basketball's right around the corner. I just saw that a dude that played in the G League for 2 years is now playing at Louisville. So if you want to go to one of these college basketball games, Tom Izzo, Bill Self, not happy. You want to go to the World Series? You an LA Dodger fan? You're not hosting it, but they will be there Game 3 and Game 4. So if you want to check those out, obviously concerts, comedy shows, my friends at GameTime have you covered. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code JOHN. For $20 off your first purchase, terms apply again. Create an account, redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. 37-10. That was a complete massacre. The Chargers just obliterated the Minnesota Vikings. I can't. I like the Chargers tonight, but I don't know if I expected that. That was wild. And I think it all gets down to this. Is the Minnesota Vikings drafted a quarterback really high? It happens a lot, right? Teams all over the league, since the history of the sport, have drafted quarterbacks high. Here's the problem. If that guy is not good, you're screwed. Every once in a while, we saw it with the 49ers. They drafted Trey Lance really high. And the expectations when you're a team like that 49er team or this Minnesota team that just won 14 games is a lot different than when Trevor Lawrence got drafted to the Jags. Kyler Murray got drafted to Arizona. There aren't any expectations. The team sucked. J.J. McCarthy inherited a 14-win team. He did not play a game last year because he was injured. 2 games into his career, after 8 quarters, and he played one good quarter out of the 8, he's injured with the, I don't know, most severe ankle injury we've ever seen. Who knows if he's coming back? Yet they didn't have a contingency plan, right? I don't blame the Vikings front office or Kevin O'Connell from going, you know what? We're going to roll with J.J. McCarthy. It was risky, but I do understand the logic of we believe in this guy. We think he's going to be healthy. We have a good enough nucleus around him. We just need him to kind of mold in. Again, risky based on your quarterback play last year. The guy threw 35 touchdowns, and a playoff level team was very interested in him. And then obviously signed him, and Sam Darnold's excelling. And that no one would argue that if you gave their general manager and Kevin O'Connell the opportunity of a redo, it's like, here's your mulligan, they would immediately take it, and they would have paid him more money than Seattle to keep him in Minnesota. We all agree there. No one's even arguing that. That was a conversation a couple weeks ago. That argument's over. If they could have a redo, they would have kept Sam Darnold. But they didn't, and they went with J.J. McCarthy. I think the mistake they made is not having a contingency plan for a guy that had proven he couldn't stay healthy. He'd only played in the league 1 year. Wasn't even possible to play a game because he ripped up his knee. And now he's injured. We don't even know if he's any good. So it's like Carson Wentz, who, that was tough to watch. I mean, it really was. Not that I'm the biggest Carson Wentz guy. Clearly, he's not a very good player. Though I'm not necessarily judging him on the night, but he was getting throttled on a play-in, play-out basis. By the end of that game, you're like cringing when he's getting hurt. His shoulder, his finger, his knees, his ankles. You're like, this guy's going to get killed. So obviously, J.J. McCarthy's going to come back, get thrown into that, and have no chance. It's probably going to look worse. And the reality is, when you go with one of these young quarterbacks, especially coming from these powerhouse programs, it's actually, you could argue, way harder to judge a kid when he's playing at some of those peak Bama teams or the peak Ohio State teams or the team J.J. McCarthy played on, one of the most talented college football teams in recent memory. They literally had a pro at every position. So it's like, is that going to translate? His advantage every game in college was, I have better players than you. And unless you are equal, which maybe happened once a season, at best, you have the same talent we have. Probably, given that my team is so good, and this used to happen to Saban, we have the advantage. So then you try to translate that to the pros, it's all a guess. And this gets back to Sam Darnold, like there's no guessing. We had seen a year with him, with the team, and him excel. Now, if you want to go, well, John, what happened in that Lions game and what happened in that Rams game, I'll be the first to agree. Wasn't pretty, especially the Lions game. He was really bad. The Rams game was him and the coach, but it was bad. But he got you there. He put you in a position of dominating and being in the MVP conversation, helping you win 14 games. That in itself is an accomplishment. I've always said this about Tua up until this year, where he obviously does not look as good as he has in years past. But a couple years ago, like, listen, Tua's value, you got no shot in the playoffs, and you got no shot in a cold game. But over the course of 17 games, if your team's relatively healthy and he's starting, like, you're going to win 8 to 10 games. And there is value in that. For a franchise like Miami, if every single year you can win 9, 10 games, just be in the playoff mix, what's that worth? $30 million a year? Not what they gave him, but there was financial value in that. When you could do Sam Darnold, make huge plays, big arm, and you could have said, well, listen, am I going to judge him just strictly on those 2 games and going, that's what he is, when I have the long body of work of him winning big games throughout that season? And I think they overthought it. And I think they got caught into, well, we drafted this guy, we got to make it work. And let's be clear. That 2024 draft could derail Kevin O'Connell big time. Because not only did they take J.J. McCarthy, which turns out does not look great at all. And honestly, if I'm a betting man, I think when he comes back, it gets way worse. Like, you think Carson Wentz looks bad. J.J. McCarthy can look worse. They also took Dallas Turner, who I started texting around my buddies in the NFL. I'm like, what do you think? What do you think? Because we're on the three and out text change talking about him like, this guy ain't good. And I got a lot of, I had a buddy compare him to Travis Hunter in the sense of it's not that Travis Hunter's a bad player. He just got overdrafted, and that trade, it's going to be really hard for him to live up to it. Well, Dallas Turner was drafted 2 picks ahead of Jared Verse. And let's face it, Jared Verse is one of the better young players in the league. Now, you say, John, you're just playing Monday morning quarterback. Well, yeah, I am. Their job's to get it right. Our job as fans, as people that talk about league, is to just talk about the current situation, what's going on. They didn't get it right. And if they could do it over, I think they would not take J.J. McCarthy. And obviously, they would rather have Jared Verse than Dallas Turner. And those were really powerful picks because they had 2 first-round picks. And it looks like they didn't get it right. And now their team, because of injuries, is a shell of itself. You go, well, of course, that would happen to any team if they got injured. Well, I'm watching the Chargers, who have a million freaking injuries. First series of the game, you see Derwin James, or might have been the second, chase down Carson Wentz. You're like, God, Derwin James looks incredible. Al Michaels comes on. He's not quite throwing fastballs anymore, but, still trying. He's like, Derwin James hasn't missed a snap this season. Next series, pulls his hamstring or ankle or whatever happens, just out. You're like, the Chargers, on any given moment, they kind of feel like the Niners. They feel like the Ravens. Someone goes down, they disappear. Doesn't matter because they got the quarterback right. Now, finding Justin Herbert is not easy. But when they went into the season with J.J. McCarthy, Carson Wentz wasn't even on the team. Remember, they signed him basically the first week of the season. They had all these other guys. It's like you didn't have a legit backup plan. Like, why didn't you, even if it's just, listen, it's not easy to find backup quarterbacks, but there were several with a lot of playing experience. Why didn't you give 1 year, $10 million to Gardner Minshew or Mac Jones or someone that's like, hey, worst case scenario, this guy started a lot of games. That wasn't the case. They had like Sam Howell, then they have Carson Wentz, and now they have the situation where they went from 14 wins last year, and we're awesome. I mean, we're freaking one of the best stories of the league. They created this Sam Darnold resurgence, and now they're not even going to win half that. And like, I'm not acting like the GM and Kevin O'Connell don't know what they're doing. They've been good. But that's the past. When you look in the future, you go, you got a disaster on your hands. You have a major problem because your quarterback situation is in major flux. You've missed on some draft picks. And like most teams, like you're just going to get injured throughout the season. So your quarterback position, where last year could elevate you, you're not even sure if he could function if you were fully healthy. So if I'm a Vikings fan, I go, how did this happen so fast? And the answer is pretty easy. They made a decision. While it was logical, it didn't work. And it backfired. And now they found themselves in shambles. Because next week, you know who they play? The Lions. So it's like, you're going to put Carson Wentz out there at 50%, or are you going to throw J.J. McCarthy finally for the first time in 7 weeks since he rolled his ankle? Because I'll tell you this, I like the Lions in that game. And all of a sudden, you look up and you're 3-5, and your season's just falling apart, and you're getting lapped in your division. And the Lions, Jared Goff, for years moving forward. The Packers, Jordan Love, for years moving forward. Even the Bears. I mean, Caleb's obviously better than anything the Vikings have. But it shows you how fast things can change. And decisions in the NFL, and it gets thrown around a lot. Like, you're just saying this because of what we know now. It's like, yeah, but their job is to get it right in the first place. And they had a lot of conviction on it. They've told us how awesome they thought this player was. Hell, they believed because they let Sam Darnold go when they had a for sure thing. A guy that even if they had to pay and couldn't build up the rest of their roster, they would have known that they could have won double-digit games for several years moving forward. Might not have been 14, but it would have been 9 or 10 minimum for the next couple years. And then you're in the playoff mix. And this isn't a 7-game series. It's one game. Anything can happen. I saw Eli Manning win multiple Super Bowls as wild card. I think the first one they won in 2007, they went 9-7. So football's not basketball, where when the playoffs start, you're like, yeah, OKC's probably going to win it. It's not baseball. It's like, yeah, the Dodgers are probably going to win it. Anything can happen in football. I mean, the Rams were a play away from knocking down the Eagles. And then the Eagles went to blow out Washington, blow out the Chiefs. Football's weird that way. And it does feel like they screwed this up. And if I'm a Vikings fan, that hurts because how awesome last year was, and really how awesome a couple years ago were with Kirk Cousins, and seeing how good this coach can be. Like, your coaching staff's good. We know Kevin O'Connell's good. I do think he's a little overrated in the way he's talked about because I don't know, he's never won a playoff game. He's been in two and favored in both and lost in both. But like, I'm not trying to act like he's some scrub. He's really good, and I'd say 80 to 85% of the teams in the league would take him without hesitation. Obviously, Flores and the infrastructure there is good. But as an organization, from a decision making standpoint, they made a bold move and it blew up in their face. And on the flip side, and listen, this, I think Kamani Vidal, I think is how you say his name, the running back from Troy, is a good example that a team can scout a player. I knew nothing about this guy. I saw his name a couple weeks ago once they had some injuries. And I remember texting a friend of mine in the league. I'm like, who is this guy? They're like, he's just a little running back from Troy. I'm like, what's his deal? They're like, really productive player. I didn't really do much research. And then tonight I'm watching him. I start Googling him. I'm like, what's this guy's deal? And he was the Sun Belt Player of the Year in 2003. He ran for over 1,600 yards. He had like 14 rushing touchdowns. He then went to the combine and ran a 4.45. I'm like, how'd this guy end up in the sixth round? Well, he's like 5'7". And I text a college director. I said, how did this guy like not end up at a bigger school? They're like, he's probably 3 inches away from being the starting running back at Georgia. And listen, sometimes in football, you get discriminated against. When you're a little slower at certain positions, when you're a little shorter at certain positions, there's a reason Ashton Genty and guys like this, aren't at Texas, USC, Oregon, or Ohio State out of high school because they're not that big. Now, that doesn't determine whether you're going to be good because I'm watching tonight going, well, that translates. He's breaking tackles. He's running, and that's back-to-back weeks of him playing pretty well. I would imagine if Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman knew what they had because they drafted this guy last year in the sixth round, played sparingly as like a backup, didn't even rush for 200 yards. But you watch him these last 2 weeks because Hampton's injured and obviously Najee's out for the season, that the Chargers don't spend $10 million on Najee Harris. They would just come into the season with maybe get a way cheaper veteran running back, Hampton, and this guy. But even in the NFL, when you know a guy, you draft a guy, he's been on your team, you don't know what you have till he plays. And that would be the argument the Vikings would say, like, we were pretty confident. I text someone who has been on multiple teams with Carson Wentz. I'm like, does he look good in practice? Like, yeah, he actually looks pretty good in practice. And sometimes you see on an individual play, you're like, God, you see the physical skills. And then there's just times where the ball's flying all over the place and his accuracy kind of shows up. But Vidal's a good example of, and this is what makes the NFL so awesome, is like, you could convince me he rushes the rest of the season for 900 yards. No one's even been talking about this guy. Hell, the Chargers didn't even believe that much in him because they drafted a running back in the first round. They gave another guy $10 million. And over the next several weeks, he could rush for 500 yards in like a month. And that's how it happens. That's how fast it happens. And tonight, listen, the one thing, if I wanted to defend Minnesota's overall effort, making a team as the season goes on travel a long way on Thursday night is borderline criminal activity. I had to Google it because I've never made the flight from Los Angeles to Minnesota. ChatGPT said depending on the wind patterns can be anywhere from like 3 hours and 45 minutes to 4 hours. It's a long flight on Thursday night. Like, what are we doing? Why don't the Chargers play like the Raiders or, I don't know, some team on the West Coast for this game? How do you force Minnesota to do this? I get it because last year the Chargers were a playoff team. Last year Minnesota was a playoff team. It's a good matchup on paper. And what do they want? Amazon to be a bigger partner. Why? Because Amazon's got a lot of money. Can't afford to pay a lot of money for the games. They want them involved. Don't blame the NFL at all. But one thing's clear when you watch games like this is how little, and I mean little, you know what the NFL gives about player safety, about player concern. They don't care at all. It's just about, Vikings-Chargers. And it turned out to be a terrible game because the travel is absolutely insane. And, Herbert, he had a pick on a ball that was tipped. He had another pick, I think, on the first series of the game that he got extremely lucky that Isaiah Rodgers is I mean, there's a reason most guys play DB and not wide receiver, and typically they don't have good hands. And he dropped a ball that was literally thrown right to him that most wide receivers would have made with their eyes closed in one hand. And and so he got lucky there. That should have been, it would have been a pick six. But overall, he just watched him make plays tonight. It was just, I mean, the difference in the game because both teams got injuries everywhere, and one team has a high level quarterback and the other team has no quarterback. And you look up and the final score is one team wins by 27 points because that's what the league comes down to in situations where both teams, elite coaching staffs, both teams, a bunch of high end players who a lot of them are hurt all over the place. And one team is a top five quarterback in the league, and the other team has, you could argue the Minnesota Vikings have one of the worst quarterback situations in the NFL right now, potentially. I mean, if J.J. McCarthy sucks, which based on the 8 quarters we've seen him and factoring in injuries, you would just have to say it's going to be a major problem. I don't know how it gets much worse than their situation. Like, are they already in the, do we draft another quarterback? Do we run this back if it stays ugly and just try to sign some version of Daniel Jones? Like, I don't give Minnesota crap for letting Daniel Jones, who I think they tried to sign this offseason for a similar number as Indy, but what did he know? Well, I know you want to start J.J. McCarthy. I know I can beat out Anthony Richardson, and he made the right choice. But again, I think if they could do that one over, they would have been like, well, just here's 1 year, $25 million. We'll make you the starter. But you can't do that. There are no mulligans in the draft and free agency. Once you make a decision, you made it, and that's what you live with. Okay, I did want to dive into a couple Fugazis because the big story today was this mob NBA arrest 30, 35 people, and just the headlines and people breaking down the indictments of Chauncey Billups. Terry Rozier has been under investigation for a long time, so that is not a new story. And there are a lot of different people with different opinions, from politics to sports. From everything I've read, this investigation has been going on for a long time, right? For years. And today was a big day in the investigation of people getting arrested. And to me, the headline was Chauncey Billups, who, to me, two things really stand out. I've been saying this for years. The epidemic of tanking in the NFL or in the NBA, there are several negative aspects of it. Obviously, you never want your product to not matter and to have teams just literally not try. That is not good. But I do think when you do it for so long, people involved in the sport become numb to who cares? This game doesn't matter. So players and coaches, if they're involved in that, and they do somehow have ties to the mob or just willing to make some bets on the side, which is crazy because I saw someone tweet, Chauncey Billups has been making $1 million plus in his job since 1997. So Chauncey Billups, and I thought Charles Barkley did a great job. They were arguing about it on Inside the NBA on ESPN, which just, it's refreshing seeing them on ESPN. Like, they did not change at all. And Kenny is like talking about being a gambling addict and all this shit. It's like, listen, I've been gambling for 20 years. And Charles was like, listen, you can't be worth $160 million and trying to do some prop bets for your buddies and call it a gambling addiction. You're a fucking moron. You're an idiot. And to me, Terry Rozier, if that's true, like he's making these guys 150 grand, and he's made $160 million in his career. Like, you are a top, like, shelf idiot. And the Chauncey Billups thing, to me, is kind of complicated because by all accounts, like, everyone loves this guy. And it's like he's involved with the mob. It almost feels like, to me, as someone who's just watched a lot of mob movies, you go, what does the mob have on him? Did he owe him money? Which you go, God, Chauncey's pretty rich. So it's like, how much would he have to owe them to not be able to pay it back? Because, some people, it's like, hey, if John Middlekauff owed the mob $2 million cash tomorrow, you go, he's in some trouble. I'm going to have some issues, right? But if you go, hey, Chauncey Billups owes them $750K, like, I got a pretty good, I think it's fair to say, like, Chauncey Billups could make that work. Hell, he's got a job right now that pays him millions of dollars. But something shady, his connection there. But I know this, right? If I rob you at gunpoint for, let's say, $200,000, I'm going to jail. Well, depending on where I live. But if I'm in Arizona, I'm definitely going to jail, right? Yet, if I rob you at a poker game, I don't think we think of it the same way. But based on what they were doing, that's essentially the same thing. And to me, the crazy part is they were using Chauncey Billups to essentially just rob people. And obviously, these poker games, I'm a sports gambler, and I used to, in my younger days, play a lot of blackjack. I never got into like hold'em or poker. It's never been my thing. Maybe it's patience. Maybe I'm just not smart enough. Maybe I just don't have a good poker face. I don't know. It never did anything for me. But like most people, I know people that love. We're in Vegas, wherever we are. We'll go to high limit tables, can sit there till for hours. I mean, could go up there at dinner time, won't come out till the next morning at 7 a.m. It's obviously people love doing it, which I respect. I kind of wish that I liked it. I can't even attempt to. It just kind of bores me. But what they were doing is just stealing people's money. It was just robbery. And instead of using a gun, they're using technology. And there were videos coming out saying that, like, yeah, that's people in the poker world kind of knew that they were getting robbed. But having this famous person kept drawing them back because it's like, these guys suck at poker. We're going to take their money. Yet they would always lose. And I just think, in these situations, the government's good at a couple things: starting wars and collecting money. And anytime you have this type money exchanging hands, because again, these type games, the pot's not $1,000. I mean, the amount of money being thrown around at some of these games, and the same thing with Gilbert Arenas with, his mafia poker games. These are extremes amounts of money. Well, who's not getting paid when people are taking money back? The government. That's why they sniff around. But to me, the thing of Chauncey Billups telling whoever about how he was going to rotate guys and play guys, that's only possible in a tanking league. Because even in the NFL, tonight, the game was atrocious. I do this for a living, and I found myself kind of getting bored. I'm like, this is an awful product. Yet millions of people are watching. In football, it's hard to hide because you only play once a week. Even when you suck, like the Jets or, the Titans, if something really shady happened, the media covering your team would immediately ask questions after the game. If a player, like a wide receiver, just had like 10 drops in a game, it would be a big story, even on a team with 2 wins. Yet in the NBA, as you get to March, as you get to April, as you get toward the end of the season, you get some of these teams that are winning 15, 20 games, and their season is just irrelevant. Doesn't matter. Even if they're playing Denver, the Warriors, or whatever, you're going to lose. I went to a game last year. The Warriors played the Suns. The Suns were fucking terrible. I think the game I went to, Booker was hurt, Kevin Durant was hurt, and Bradley Beal was out there. And the Warriors were up 30 before he even blinked. The game was a joke. And this happens all around the league. No one's paying attention in these games because the games simply don't matter. So if you get some of these people involved in the games, you go, why does it even matter if I tell someone like, yeah, we're going to suck tonight. We're going to get throttled. Like, it's not that crazy. And if you are involved with those type of people, even if you're not involved with the mob, just someone that gambled and you were talking about it, like, yeah, I'll put some action on this game. And in their mind, they might be thinking, what am I really doing wrong? We got 19 wins. There's 2 games left in the season. And this gets back to the problem that has defined Adam Silver's career is the tanking. So you just have so many teams where none of it matters, and that's where weird shit can go on. Because you know where weird shit can't really go on? Like the Thunder playing the Warriors with a week left in the season when they're playing for seeding. You know what can't really go wrong? NFL games, because everyone's paying attention. The games matter. Yet in the NBA, we just saw it last year. And I'll give them credit. They changed the lottery. So it's like, yeah, you can tank, but you're not guaranteed getting Cooper Flag. But still, like 10 teams tanked because they wanted to get Cooper Flag. So, and some of these teams, I'm not talking tanking the last week of the season. I'm talking months, all season, not even trying. I don't think Utah's tried in years. In years. So sad about the Suns. I think they've actually tried, and they still sucked. They're going to suck again, and they're probably going to try. But a lot of these teams actively don't try to win. And it gets back to the Sam Hinkie days. And when you have these situations, shady people get involved. And let's face it, basketball by far of all the major sports is the most corrupt sport. It's not even close because it's the easiest to manipulate with referees, with players. You can't even really notice. The only way now you can with technology. I was just talking to the dudes building the office in the backyard today because they asked me. They're like, "Yeah, you see the story?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's crazy." We started talking like mafia and mob. Listen, anyone watches these stories from like John Gotti to the Five Families to all that stuff in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it's harder to figure it out why technology didn't exist. Now, technology, I can track everyone's steps for everything. Hell, the reason Terry Rozier got turned in is because the gambling companies turned them in. Like, wait, way too many people are betting the under on all his player props. Now I see the media, it's like, oh, everyone's involved with gambling. It's like, no, it's like, this is what the fuck are we talking about? If you're actively throwing stuff, that's illegal activity. I mean, whether people are involved with gambling or not, it's like, what are we talking about? This has nothing to do like, oh, it's just so legal now. It's like, no, it's like criminal activity. He knows exactly what he's doing. And for a guy that made $160 million, you want to get your buddies some money, give him 20 grand, tell him to invest in the stock market. Do it this way, like you deserve to go to jail for being a complete idiot. Complete idiot. And Adam Silver's got some, you know, blood on his hands because this guy's been in the league for the last couple of years. And Charles Barkley's the only guy I've seen ask people, like, what's going on? Adam Silver screwed this one up? Is Adam Silver to blame on this one? Of course he is, because he gets walked all over. Uh, and this is kind of the end result where they stand now. So I was going to talk football, but we'll have Stuckey coming up tomorrow as well. And yeah, a couple other quick things. This Fugazi's bothering me. My wife loves, and listen, I can get into it at time too. Love is Blind. I think Love is Blind is one of the most outrageous shows of all time. I don't even believe it. I think the Fugazi going on in this show and in this series, I think all these people are actors. Because I've never met a human being, never met a, and I've met a lot of human beings. I'm 40 years old, lived in different places, known a bunch of people. Even just, I'm not even talking friends, I'm talking casually. I don't think I've ever met a human being that would be like, yeah, I would go on a show where I couldn't see the other person and then I would get down on a knee. Or if I was a girl, I would let them get down on a knee and I would get engaged without ever seeing them. I think it's the most unrealistic show in the history of humanity. And I just don't believe any of these people are real. I don't believe that this is actually happening. Now, I think they're all paid actors because I don't think you could be an actual human being in doing this. And if you're doing it, you're just, doing it for fame, your acting career trying to take off. But I don't think any person actively looking for a significant other, a partner, would attempt this experiment because it's that unrealistic. I mean, it's just, you're just talking to them behind a pod, having a few cocktails, and after a couple days, you're going to get down on a knee. Like, think how just insane that is. And you see these situations, and they're all breaking up. None of them like each other. You're like, yeah, no shit. I could have told you this thing would fail. And last but not least, Lane Kiffin is the talk of the town. Watch that documentary. He just looks so good. He's skinny. I'm like, I keep looking at myself. I'm like, I'm just getting fat, trying to be healthy. And all he does is hot yoga. So I'm like, you know what? My gym, I was looking, they got classes. They got spin classes stuff. They got hot yoga classes. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take this hot yoga class at 6 in the morning. So I've done hot yoga maybe once in my life, 15 years ago at Fresno State, actually, with Tim Skipper, who hopefully gets a big win this weekend against Indiana. And I remember doing it back then. It was hot, it was hard, but I was probably 25 years old, could handle it, complain or whatever, do some stretches. I went to this class this morning. There were probably 6, 7 other women in the class. I was the only guy. I would say I was at 40 years old, the youngest person by far. Multiple women probably in their 60s, all in good shape. About 10 minutes in, I look over at the clock because I'm like, how long have we been in here? Like an hour? And I look and it's 6:10. So we had been in there 10 minutes. I'm like, I don't think I can make it 10 more minutes. So I mentally just like, I start thinking like the Navy SEALs. I'm like, do not ring that bell. You can't look terrible in front of these women who are just dominating this class, doing these poses, doing this. And I'm like, I was just watched the E60 on Lane Kiffin, and he was doing it with ease. He's skinny. He looks great. It's like, this can't be that hard. And I'm 20 minutes in. I'm like, there is no way I got 40 more minutes in me. And I just kept telling myself, do not ring that bell. Do not ring that bell. Do not quit. And I gotta be honest, I quit at 40 minutes in. And I don't even know how I made it 40 minutes. And I'm not one of those people that makes fun of yogis. Like I respect it. I'm not that flexible. Hot yoga, that was one of the most difficult things I've done in a long time. And there was a split second where I'm like, I might not make it. I can't breathe. My muscles are all tensing up. I feel like I don't know if I'm gonna have a heart attack. I don't know if I'm gonna die of dehydration. I just feel like there's a chance if I make it to the 60 minutes, they might have to call a medic. So anyone that does hot yoga consistently, nothing but respect, because that anyone who thinks that that's easy or like just not that difficult or not that impressive is high on drugs, because that's one of the most difficult physical activities I've done in a decade. So congrats to all you yogis out there.